like we have a quorum, so we'll call the Transportation Commission meeting for December 11th, 2024 to order. And Ariana, if you'd read the instructions, please.
Welcome to our virtual meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ariana. Before we call the roll, Eric Finch, I'm going to call on you. I just got off the phone with Eric and Kaylee. Apparently, there was some confusion about whether the mayor had actually signed the council proceedings from last night. And I'm not exactly sure why you showed up in Legistar as a member if in fact you aren't a member. Hang on one second. Could you please move Denise from attendees to panelist, Ariana?
Yeah, it looks like she accepted it, so it should be any second now.
Okay, thank you. So Eric, do you want to, apparently Eric talked to Mike Haas and has an update, unless Tom, you have some different update. Eric, do you want to?
The latest information I have is that the mayor has not signed the full proceedings from last night, just the alder appointments. So the resident appointments have not been signed yet. So the new members are not yet members for this meeting. They obviously will be by the time the next meeting comes around. So because of that, the new members are not eligible to participate in the conversation other than as members of the public, and they're not able to vote or if for alternates, become voters. Bill, I think, would still be, you would still retain your old position. So if you're elevated to vote, and then finally, if the commission wanted to, it could make a special rule for this meeting, allowing particular individuals to participate in the discussion throughout the meeting. In this case, that being the new members. Something like that's been done before, and that may help facilitate their, getting their feet under them as we welcome them to the Transportation Commission.
Sure. Tom, did you have a comment before we move on?
Yeah, actually, I just want to first welcome Kaylee and then apologize for all this confusion.
Yeah.
The council meeting got done like at 12:30 last night, and the mayor has been out of town, I think in Washington today. So then I just want to do that, and then the body of the TC can decide if they want to allow Kaylee to participate in the discussion or not. But welcome, Kaylee. Thanks for being a member.
And I'm totally.
Yeah, and thanks so much for your interest, Kaylee, and the emails that I've seen, and I'll be sending you one myself, welcoming you and offering you a link to the handbook and et cetera, et cetera. So let's call the roll of the TC without Kaylee and Lynn for right now, Aiden, and then we'll move on from there. So welcome, Kaylee, and Aiden, why don't you call a roll?
Sure. So Juliana Bennett, who would count as excused, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
MGR Govindarajan. Dina Nina.
I don't see him. Do you?
I don't.
Okay.
At this time. Dina Nina Martinez Rutherford.
I am present.
Barbara Harrington McKinney.
I don't see her.
Ann Kovich.
Here.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Denise Jess.
I'm here.
Pepe Barros.
Here.
Chris McHale.
Here.
Bill Bremer.
Here.
And Harold Kleems.
Present.
Okay, well, Bill, you can vote this evening because we have two folks not here. And we still have vacancies technically according to, where we're at in the process. Since Kaylee was kind enough to come and we have a lot of misconceptions about what's going on, Harold?
For that reason, I would like to make a motion for a special rule allowing Kelly to participate in discussion.
Okay, so basically, Eric, I think we're going to suspend the rules and allow Kaylee to participate in the discussion. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I think you can do a motion in a second, and then I would assume you could do a unanimous consent.
Right, but suspend the rules, is that the correct way to say it?
Yes, it would be suspend the rule and introduce a special rule to allow Kaylee to participate in the conversation.
Are you okay with that wording, Harold?
It's exactly what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, Alder Martinez Rutherford.
I would be happy to second that.
Oh, thank you so much. Did you wish to speak to your motion at all, Harold?
Just want to say welcome, Kelly.
Yes, thank you. I am going to assume unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain, or a roll call vote. I'll watch for hands. Okay, seeing no hands. Kaylee, welcome again. And this means that you can participate in the discussion, ask questions, make comments. Sadly, you just can't vote this evening. And we can explain your alternate role unless that's already been explained to you at a later time outside of the meeting. We appreciate you being willing to serve, and we look forward to your feedback. I'm just gonna ask you. You want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, Kaylee, as long as you're here and we're welcoming you?
Sure. Thanks, everybody. I feel like I'm getting a lot of special attention today.
Yes.
My name's Kaylee Jameson. I live on the Near East Side, First and East Main area. I have lived in Madison since undergrad, love it here. I am a public health person. And my focus is in health policy, health equity. I did my master's thesis on the ability of public transit and active transit to help people find social connection and feel a sense of place. So those are some of my interests. In my day job, I work in childcare policy for the Department of Children and Families. And I'm really happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you so much. So just raise your hand when you wish to speak and you'll end up in the queue. So did everybody have an opportunity, and again, welcome, Kaylee. Everybody have an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting? Chris?
Approval of the minutes?
Okay, there's a motion. Bill?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alder Martinez Rutherford? You're muted, Alder.
I just wanted to recuse myself or not.
Abstain?
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
That's what I would like to do on this.
Okay, all right. We'll show you as abstaining. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay. Seeing no hand, we'll move on. Public comment. There was one email public comment. Aiden, did we have anybody registered to speak this evening under item 1?
We do not for item 1.
Okay. Any disclosures or recusals this evening? Okay, seeing no hands. We have one item on the consent agenda, which is item number 2. Do we have anybody registered to speak on item 2, Aiden?
No, we do not.
Okay. Did anybody wish that to be separated from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing no hands, can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Harold,
Move approval.
okay, there's a motion. Chris,
Second.
there's a motion and a second. I'm assuming no discussion. And I'm also going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Okay, seeing no hands, that passes unanimously. All right, so we move on to item number 3. Do we have anybody registered to speak on item 3?
We do have one person.
Okay, all right, so we'll hear from Mike and possibly Tom, who's ever going to handle a presentation, and then we'll hear from the public, and then we'll have comments and discussion. So Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks, everybody. I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Bear with me for a second. So I'm Mike Checkfile with Metro Transit. This is a little part of the bus rapid transit system that we've been kind of. It's taken quite a while to get to building this. I'll kind of start from the top. This is University Avenue at where Campus Drive splits off. Babcock Drive is over here, as you can see. Breeze Terrace is just to the west. So currently the westbound bus lane on University Avenue ends at Babcock Drive. It becomes basically right only for cars onto Babcock Drive. Buses continue west. From that bus lane, they merge into the general purpose lane. And then there's kind of a bike lane that crosses the railroad tracks, and then that bike lane kind of peters into a shoulder. So our goal with the bus rapid transit system was to extend that bus lane past Babcock Drive, get it across the railroad tracks, across this crosswalk that connects with Old University. And then that bus lane would kind of peter out into a shoulder. At that point, buses would get really past all of the congestion on campus. They would get past that last traffic signal. In theory, we could set up a queue jump here to get them back into traffic, but realistically, we'd probably just let them merge back, and it wouldn't be a big deal. But we'd get them through the congestion of the last couple traffic signals on campus. It's about 500 feet of additional bus lane, but it's extremely valuable bus lane because it's really there where we need it. The complicating part of it was that it goes through this railroad crossing. And so our concept was to just kind of piece it into the railroad crossing. That turned out to be way more complicated than we were hoping that it would be. And so basically the city was ordered by the Office of Commissioner of Railroads to fix a lot of longstanding problems with this crossing. They did give us the ability to add the bus lane, but they also made us do a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm gonna kind of go into it, but before I do, our initial time frame here was we were hoping to do some construction over the winter before we start conflicting with some other things. That time frame has is not going to work out. This will be a 2025 project. So we do need to comply with the orders of the Office of Commissioners of Railroads, the OCR. But this is a really complicated intersection. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces, and there's always some details that we can work on and try to do. So I thought it would be good to get this on your radars, get some comments if you have any or thoughts to make this as best as we can make out of it. So with that, I'll kind of go into some of the details here. First of all, this crossing will get railroad gates. They ordered gates to be installed to protect the crossing that would replace the existing warning lights, which are the flashing red lights would be replaced with gates, bells, and warning lights associated with the gates. There'll be some other signal changes that they ordered, but the biggest thing I think is these two crossings here. So I'm just going to use kind of their language, and then I'm going to intersperse it with our language. They call this crossing on the west side of Babcock, they call that the West Babcock crossing. And then this pedestrian crossing along the north side of University Avenue crossing the tracks, they call that the East Babcock crossing. Now, I would just call that the University Avenue sidewalk, but that's what it is in the record. So if you read through the materials, you'll see that referred to as the East Babcock crossing. And then we have this really long, big, major crossing, which I believe is called the University Avenue crossing or University at Babcock or something. So from the railroad's perspective, this is 3 crossings, but from all practical perspectives, it's one area. And so the main thing that was ordered here is we were ordered to consolidate these 2 Babcock crossings, East Babcock and West Babcock, with one pedestrian crossing that serves both movements here, or wherever it is people are going. These 2 pedestrian crossings would be closed, and then one would be opened in the middle, and that would connect back to the sidewalks on Babcock Drive, and on the west side it would connect back to the traffic signal between Campus Drive, University, and Old University. So, if you're seeing here, the yellow would be new pavement that would be removed and replaced with a slight widening. So again, the bike lanes widened 5 feet or whatever it is to convert it from a bike lane to a bus lane. And then there's some work going on at the University and Babcock crossing as well. So there's a lot going on here, and we'd really have to zoom in on it. But I'm going to focus on the highlights. Right now, there's a crosswalk across Babcock Drive just west of the splitter island. So that would be removed and replaced with a crosswalk that's a little bit more parallel to University Avenue to serve people walking east and west across on University Avenue, and put that crosswalk a little bit more where people would expect it, and then use the splitter island as a refuge as well. This southbound movement is just bikes, but it still would perform that function. There's also a ramp on the Gore here, which is the nose of the curb between Babcock Drive and Campus Drive. It was fairly important to remove that. I think what's going on now is that was kind of a way for bikes to get up onto the sidewalk and then use this sidewalk crossing. But it's not really set up in any kind of official way. And so that would be replaced by this more normal curb ramp. And then pedestrians and bikes, if they wanted to, could go up along this new sidewalk along the south side of Babcock Drive, cross the railroad tracks at a 45-degree angle, at a 90-degree angle, and then continue west along University Avenue and to wherever they're going, and obviously the same in the other direction. So, there are a lot of players that are interested in this. Obviously, the city has a huge stake in it. Obviously, the railroad. We've also been working with the UW. I'll just share some of their comments. I think they've been good partners in helping us work through some of the very many moving parts on this. I'll say that they are concerned about losing this West Babcock crossing. I think we totally understand that. There's obviously kind of a desire path to go up north along Babcock Drive. I think there's a pretty well, I think there's a pretty consistent agreement between the city and the UW that this crossing along University Avenue on the north side of University Avenue is probably the most problematic part of what's there right now. It's at an extremely acute skew, and so there's a high chance of somebody with their bike tires or wheelchair tires or scooter or whatever they have getting caught in the flange way of the railroad tracks, just because they're so close to being parallel to each other, and then the chance that somebody could go down or get kind of directed along the railroad tracks as opposed to along the sidewalk. So I think that's kind of the main thing there. Thinking about desire paths here, I think there's kind of two main desire paths. One is people walking east-west along the north side of University Avenue, going from, say, the heart of UW campus west towards Breeze Terrace, Old University, Camp Randall, or wherever they're going. And then one is people going north-south. So people coming from Babcock, coming south, and then crossing the tracks, crossing University Avenue, and then going, either west towards Breeze Terrace, Old University Avenue, Camp Randall, wherever, or then, going south to east. So those are kind of the desire paths, north, south, and east, west, and obviously the different permutations of that, from the north to the east and whatever. So again, just wanted to kind of get this on your radar and open it up for discussion to see what thoughts you might have on this. I see Tom.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'll go to Tom for presentation, but we want to wait for discussion until after we hear from the public, Mike.
Oh, great. Okay.
So
Okay.
I just want to augment what Mike said in that, the OCR decision actually has the full force of law. It's something that we can't not do as much as we would like to not do sometimes. The OCR is, it's not like other agencies like the DNR or other thing where you can kind of get in a room and discuss different issues. The OCR is more has a court type of proceedings where you submit petitions and testimonies and then there's counter testimonies and the like. And so I've seen some of the comments on this, and I've heard a lot of the comments saying, well, I don't like this or that. And, we have small avenues or maybe small modifications, but we can't really not comply with this order. And so I just want, that to be kind of a base so that, those testifying maybe understand our position and the Transportation Commission understand our situation. So thank you.
Yeah, very helpful, both Mike and Tom. Aiden, who do we have to speak this evening on this topic?
So we have Dan Pensinger of Forsythia Place opposes and wishes to speak.
Okay, Dan, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak today. I have worked or gone to school on campus for about 17 years, and I primarily use my bike as my main mode of transportation. So when I was looking at this agenda item, I was alarmed to see that there was a proposal to remove the southbound bike lane on Babcock and also the signalized intersection to cross University. From language, I guess I wasn't completely sure whether that was proposed to be a permanent or just during construction phase of this. But in actuality, I think it would be much better to actually take the southbound bike lane that's currently just designated by paint and actually make that a protected lane. Because I think that's a pretty important cross point for people on bikes and micro mobility devices, which are very popular on campus. I guess just thinking about this intersection in general, it would be nice to see some thought about just the crossing of University for pedestrians. That crossing is pretty dangerous because of car speed and the number of lanes. I've seen many near misses and also cars that end up stopping in the crosswalk. So I think, you know, I would ask, I guess, the Transportation Commission to consider what options are available to make that crossing more visible and safer for pedestrians, and perhaps increase the priority so that there's less, you know, if there's less of a wait time at the signalized intersection, you might have fewer people trying to cross on the other east-west crosswalks there, and have it be safer for pedestrians. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you, Dan. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for testifying, Dan. I just want to make sure I understood what you said. I think you said the south bike lane, and that's referring to the one on the south side of Babcock going west, I suppose. Like the counterflow bike lane along Babcock.
Dan, go ahead. Can you hear us, Dan? Ariana, have you?
Dan should have permission to talk. Let me just double check. Yeah, Dan should be able to talk.
If I could just quickly address one issue while we're trying to get Dan back on. One question was about the bike and pedestrian access. So I did have some notes on that drawing that were referenced to during construction. So that area would still be open to bikes and pedestrians after the work is done, but that was just during construction. That was a temporary. That would be a temporary.
Okay, Dan, it looks like Dan, whoops, where'd he go? Dan, it looks like he might be there now. Are you able to unmute yourself? There you go.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. There was a Zoom request to become a panelist, and then I clicked it, and it kicked me out for a second. So I'm sorry. I missed, I think, some of what Harold was asking me to clarify. There's on Babcock, there's a bike lane on the right side going north, and there's also a bike only lane going south. And my understanding from the diagram and the text of the proposal was that that southbound bike lane might be removed. And so I was concerned if that was planned to be a permanent removal along with the signalized intersection. I think that would be very bad for people who are cycling or using micromobility devices on campus. And the suggestion was to have them go onto the sidewalk, but that leads to a lot of conflicts with pedestrians, and it's certain times of day, like between class. It's a really, really crowded area because there's all kinds of people trying to get to the next class. And so I just think that's a bad idea to remove the separate cyclist infrastructure there. And in fact, I think it should be improved and not taken away. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, anybody else have a question for the registrant? Okay, thanks very much, Dan. Do we have anybody else registered, Aiden?
We do not.
Okay, comments or questions for Mike and Tom? Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, and I think in all my years of looking at OCR orders, this is the most complicated, difficult location to resolve for safety of all users, including railroad grade crossing, which we have to keep in mind, and that's the primary responsibility of OCR. And they're trying to look at everybody and to make sure that nobody gets involved with a rail grade crossing crash. So I guess to Mike or Tom, is the order final?
Yes.
It is, okay, all right. So in other words, the only way to change anything is they're not open to any more appeals, I guess. Or maybe there is, but I doubt that would do any good. But the only way to circumvent or go against the OCR is to take them to court, and that's not desirable at all. You don't have very good luck with that. So, and as well as time and so forth. So is the, as far as the railroad grade crossing, is all the equipment on order now, and when is that going to be installed? Is that this 2025?
We're hoping 2025. It's not on order yet. We're still working through agreements with OCR and UW, or sorry, with WSOR and UW.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is an extremely challenging, and I understand that pedestrians, changing pedestrian movements is, as far as moving them. There will be quite a bit of fencing, correct? So that people will not be able to cut across the tracks, correct? Is that true?
Yeah, I kind of skipped that part. But this pink dotted line here is the existing fence. It's a pretty standard black metal fence with some more ornate brick pillars in between. And so it would be closed off here where the existing crossing is and opened up where the new crossing is. We're also looking to see if it could be extended on the east end a little bit here to prevent people from walking around it.
I think if we were going to trying to keep pedestrians from doing bad things, I think we have to have fence. I don't see any way around it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Tom and Eric both raised their hand, Bill. They may have some answers for you with regard to the OCR decision.
Tom, you go first.
Yeah. We have about, I can't remember if it's 45 days to either request a rehearing or, and then a little bit longer to file an appeal. In this particular instance, this order was issued right when we were trying to execute our construction agreement with FTA. And FTA was already quite concerned about this issue. And so I think we had concerns if we filed an appeal, it would have jeopardized some of our funding. And so we just chose not to. So it's kind of set in stone. We actually are having to file an extension. I don't know if Mike mentioned that or not, because we were supposed to have some of this stuff done.
It looked like the order said you were supposed to have it done by the end of this year. So I know that's possible. So, and I saw a lot of discussion about funding, and OCR was not happy with you got the 160 million, you take care of it.
Yeah, it's
so I was looking for additional funds from other sources, and that was not successful, I assume.
We actually had to pull all of these improvements fully from the project, and so all of them, we were ordered to do them, but they're all being paid for via Madison taxpayers. The federal government's not paying any, because
that's what I suspected.
We had to do that just to keep things moving forward.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Eric, did you have any other comments about this?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of suing the OCR, the city did last sue OCR in 2012, and we got a favorable decision. The OCR is restricted to considering primarily safety, and then secondarily considering convenience in their proceedings. And in that case, they were not found to have sufficiently focused on safety, and instead they took an arbitrary action. So when considering these things, and the Transportation Commission considering, what commission members recommend, just wanted to put that context in there.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that, because I think, Eric, it is a challenge to work with them, and they have a little bit different role than many other regulatory bodies in the state. It's kind of unique, I would say, but it's a challenge to work with. So this isn't the only location we may disagree with OCR's findings on. So thanks.
Okay, thanks, Bill. That's all you had then? Yep. Go ahead, Harold.
Yeah, thanks. Starting with a question, Mike, you said there's going to be additional gates or a gate. Can you just point that out? I couldn't quite figure out where exactly those will be.
Yeah, so this will become a gated crossing, and so here's the railroad tracks here. We'll have gates eastbound approaching the railroad tracks, and then also gates westbound approaching the railroad tracks, and then also a gate southbound for Babcock Drive, because this crosswalk for bikes that go southbound to eastbound, that movement is too close to the railroad tracks, so they will need to get gated as well. I do think I have a drawing here. If you want to see more, I'd have to find it though.
No, I think, yeah, that's okay. Then the other question, so from my reading of the order is, yes, the consolidation of the two east and west Babcock crossings, that's part of the order. What I didn't quite figure out, did they say which one you have to consolidate? Like, because as you
we have to
mentioned-
consolidate both of the both. So we close two and open one. So we have to close
Right.
both west and east, and then we're able to open one new one.
Okay, and they ordered you to close the west one, like there was not an option to only keep the west one and close the other two?
Correct. Basically, yeah. There was basically a few sketches that had gone around, and they had said that you have to design it like the sketch, and that sketch basically showed this one crossing open and this other crossing closing. I think, you know, there could be a you know, how we interpret that we don't know exactly how loosely or how tightly we can interpret that. I know for sure we can't have two crossings. You know, if we were to have one and it were to be closer to the west or even at the West Babcock crossing, it's possible that they may be open to that. I think we'd have to go back to them and see what they would say. We'd have to confer with the railroad again. But that was basically the order to conform to a very loose sketch that was submitted at one point, that had these two crossings closing and one new crossing opening.
Okay. I think that might be worth pursuing based on what you said, the university pointing out that west crossing, I mean, it shortens those desire paths going north-south, north-west, and all that. I guess you'd have to have a longer longer sidewalk on the Babcock side, but then you could skip that section along University Drive. So I think in terms of cost, it might, I guess that I'm not sure if there's enough right of way along Babcock Drive to extend that sidewalk all the way. Seeing what
Looks like Tom has, yeah, Harold, looks like Tom has his hand up. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'm not sure how major this change is, but if it's a relatively large change, we actually have to repetition and go through the whole. It's a year-long process. It's kind of burdensome. Mike, were you tracking on Harold and how different?
Yeah, I think Harold, what you're saying is similar to what we talked about with the UW, is keeping this crossing open, and then going ahead and closing that one, but just having this one here. And I think we would not have the sidewalk along the fence along south of Babcock Drive. I think we would instead direct people up towards this sidewalk. I think staff's concerned with that would be jeopardizing the desire path along the east-west route along the University Avenue, but I think we're open to looking at that. I think those are kind of the two major questions that we've asked ourselves internally. is how would that jeopardize the east-west movement? For example, would it cause people to walk in the road? Particularly, they'd be walking in the bus lane, which would be of concern to Metro from a safety perspective. And then secondarily, what would be the outcome with the OCR? Would it require a new petition, or would they consider it to be a minor adjustment to their order?
I mean, with regard to the desire path, I'm kind of thinking this is, I think, what Bill, you had pointed out with, are you going to be able to extend that fence? I feel right now it's a relatively small gap from where Babcock and University meet and where that new sidewalk would start. So that seems like something where like, oh, I'll just walk through the grass or the bus lane. But if that sidewalk along University is all gone, I feel like that's at that point, and it's not much longer to walk along Babcock and then make the crossing at the west side. So I would be less concerned about that. And I get the point about the repetitioning, but maybe that's something, yeah. I mean, if you need to do that, then obviously that's out of the question. But if there is flexibility to that, I think, I mean, I'm curious to hear what other people think, but that seems the better solution. Right, that's what I had.
Okay, thanks, Harold. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. I have some thoughts about bike paths, biking routes. That is probably going to be hard to communicate, but I will do my best. So I think part of the thinking here is that if someone is biking from the east, basically in the bus lane, that they might follow this new sidewalk and new train crossing. My thought is that if someone is heading westbound on University, they will either be heading down Babcock Drive, so they will turn onto the existing bike lane on Babcock Drive, or they will want to head up Campus Drive. And I'm thinking in that case, the ideal option would be for them to continue down Babcock Drive until that point of the track crossing. So, and then turn left toward Campus Drive. So what I'm getting at is, I would think that the new train crossing should be fairly wide, to the extent that you can make it a pretty wide crossing. And then that path to Campus Drive, west of that point where it crosses the track, should be large enough to handle people walking and biking. Did that make any sense at all, Mike?
Yeah, I think you got it, and I think you've basically got it right. I think so for bikes heading west, there'd be kind of to Old University or wherever, there'd be kind of two paths. The more all ages and abilities type of route would be turning right onto Babcock Drive, biking up Babcock Drive, turning left at the new crosswalk of Babcock Drive, using the new railroad crossing, going along that wide sidewalk along University Avenue, and then using this crosswalk to get to this wide sidewalk, and then going wherever. Some cyclists would probably just stay in the bus lane up until the Old University intersection and then turn left or whatever. One other thing I probably should have mentioned earlier is that the UW is planning on extending their Campus Drive path. And so when that's completed, there should be a route up Babcock Drive and then turning to the west up by the curve here that will get people all the way to the west, basically paralleling Babcock Drive. So that will be a completely separate option compared to this. But otherwise,
okay.
Yeah, I think you understand it the way we do.
I think we're on the same page. I guess just to clarify, I'm suggesting there is only one place to veer right off of University, and that would be onto the right-hand side of Babcock Lane. And I'll send you a sketch.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks, Chris. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks again. I I like what Harold has said, and I kind of like to endorse that also. I think from OCR's standpoint, what they're interested in is closing crossings. And I think as long as you're, they're looking at only having one. And I think the one on the west is more valuable, I think, to UW and to the city. And I think if you make that a wide for bikes and pedestrians, I think that would be highly desirable, and I think OCR would maybe go along with that without any significant objections at all. As long as they can get the east one closed, I think is what they're really trying to accomplish. So I think that would be what Harold is proposing would be worth looking at. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Robbie, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'll third that. And the other the other reason that having the existing crossing / crosswalk across Campus Drive to the Energy Building and Old University Avenue, and also the engineering campus, in its current location, is that it avoids bicyclists who are going to go down Babcock, make a left, make a right, and then make a left again to get across to Old University Avenue or the Breeze Terrace, the Energy Building in that wedge, or the engineering campus. I mean, it just seems like a little bit of a awkward movement to have to do a zigzag instead of just going down Babcock and making one left and having a straight shot all the way across. So I understand that if we can't, if the OCR is going to make a big deal out of this, that we may not be able to do it, but that the Western access, I think, is a more natural path for people to use. So I know that to get to Old University Avenue, that is a huge connection for people who live in the Regent neighborhood or are going down Breeze Terrace or anywhere in that area, the stadium, the engineering campus, or anything like that. That's really the only way to do it. I mean, I used to veer across 3 lanes to get onto Old University Avenue, but I'm one of those bicyclists who's willing to do that. I think most people don't, and it doesn't feel particularly comfortable or safe. So I think going down Babcock and then crossing is a much more natural option for people. So if possible, I would support keeping that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Robbie. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, one more, inspired by what Chris said, and sorry, Chris, if I'm just repeating what you were saying. So for the people who go westbound and decide to take the bus lane to the crossing and then make that left turn, I guess accommodating that with one of those ramps to get off out of the bus lane, no matter if you keep the west or the middle crossing, I think that would be good to incorporate that into the design, because otherwise it'll be awkward to like only have the curb cut right at the crossing because you have to make that jug handle turn. That makes sense.
Other comments or questions? Mike, Tom, did you get the feedback you needed?
I think we got it. Thank you.
Okay, sounds like we might see this back again at some point. All right, thanks much. So let's move on to item 4, which is the Safe Streets Madison Badger Road Sidewalk Project. Do we have anybody registered to speak on this, Aiden?
Oh, we do not.
I'm sorry?
We do not, no.
Okay. Mario, are you going to handle this?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So this project, let me go ahead and share my screen here. This is a Safe Streets project, the Badger Road sidewalk, sort of Park Street and Badger Road. There's a Burger King at this corner. To the west is that Park Street and Badger Road intersection. To the east is the new Black Excellence Center that's being constructed right now along Badger Road by the Beltline. And so this project is to connect these two, that new sidewalk with this intersection through the Burger King. And we initially, this was budgeted around $60K. It is just a sidewalk. But looking into the design a little bit more, we ran into a couple of issues with it. Number one is that this is that entire terrace is most of the terrace is private property where we need to go. So we're drafting up an easement, and real estate folks said we got to buy the land for this easement. So it's going to be about, based on the bank across the street that sold a few years back, it's going to be around $74,000 for that easement if those rates hold. Could be less, but we want to budget for the worst case scenario. And then the estimate did come a little high as well, just because there were some grade issues in here. The driveway of the Burger King is quite steep going away from the sidewalk. So we need to actually cut into Badger Road and make some grade changes there. So that came in at around $88,000. So our new estimate is $162,000 for this project. And that's why I'm here sort of seeking a motion to just sort of reapprove this project with the understanding that it will be at a much higher cost than initially we thought.
Okay, thanks, Mario. Before we go to comments or questions, Renee, do you want to talk about the importance of the connection here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of times a project might be over or under a little bit, but obviously, as Mario said, this one's pretty significant, but we still think it's a critical project. The Center for Black Excellence will be building a sidewalk connection on their property, but without this, it isn't going to connect down to Park Street because there is just a little bit of sidewalk. And then there'll be this gap. And obviously, a lot of people are going to walk through that Burger King parking lot if we don't get a sidewalk in. But that's parking lot crashes aren't something that we talk about a lot here, but they are not insignificant safety issues as well. So we feel like the time to do this is now to get this built, even with that additional cost.
Thanks, Renee. Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I wonder, in the big picture, how did we end up with this situation where we have this sidewalk stub and clearly the property line, it looks like maybe Badger Road was widened at some point, and so I guess it was dedicated to another travel lane. And is that something that we can consider undoing?
So that is a good question about the history of how this developed. And I don't know if anyone on this call can answer that or not.
I don't know the history, but I can tell you that there is there's like a through lane, a right turn lane, and a left turn lane at this intersection.
Right, which seems like a lot.
Tom has his hand up. Maybe he can help with that.
Yeah, I can't help with absolute certainty, right? But this is town of Madison area, you know what I mean? And so it's likely that the initial approach was built with the Beltline while this was part of the town of Madison. I suspect, and Mario could confirm, that while perhaps we could narrow the approach and change the curve, That would probably just add cost, you know, right now if we're trying to retrofit something into what's there, but. So that's it.
It would add cost.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bill, go ahead.
Could you just point out where the Burger King's lot line is on the east side? Is it at the top of the drawing, or is it right there? Yeah, right there. Is that their property line? Somebody's moving a cursor, I guess, and I don't.
Mario, are you in charge of the
Mario,
cursor?
is it at station 23+00? Or very close to that, right there? Okay. All right. So, yeah, the sidewalk is gonna take up quite a bit of property. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, other comments or questions? It seems like this is, Alder Govindarajan, go ahead.
Thank you. I might have missed this if you guys mentioned it already, but where does the funding come from? Is this a general fund for this?
So this would come additional funding from Safe Streets Madison. So we would just need more than the 60,000 that came out, that was approved last year for this project. We would need to allocate 100,000-ish more.
Okay. And it would come from the 2025 budget, correct?
Correct. You know, we have to do a full accounting for 2024, but it looks like that's all gone, and so we would need 2025 budget.
Okay, thank you so much.
Capital budget.
Right. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, inspired by that question, would the project still have rated above the funding cut had the true cost been known?
So I would say this would be a little bit more like a couple of other big sidewalk projects, like we have one that we're doing over on the Stoughton Road frontage road to connect where the tiny house village is going, where it did score lower because it's just the way that our scoring metric works for these projects. Once they get up over 120,000, they get a very low score, even if they have a high value.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And I think I'm in favor of doing this project. I think it's necessary, particularly because of that we're having a significant improvement with the new center that's going in. And I think it's absolutely critical that this sidewalk be in place when that opens, because I think we need to have the pedestrians that are accessed both coming and going from that down to Park Street. I think it's critical. But it's a significant gap that needs to be filled. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I agree. It seems like a very important connection to me. So other comments or questions, Robbie?
So you'll have to excuse the fact that I have a lot of trouble reading engineering drawings, but I was looking at Google Street View for where this is. And is the sidewalk proposed? So we're going to be acquiring some property from Burger King. Is the sidewalk, right now it looks like there is parking lot and then a planted terrace that I'm not sure how wide it is, and then the road.
Correct, yeah.
Is the proposal to acquire some of the parking lot? Or is the sidewalk going to be right next to Badger Road?
The sidewalk is going to be about 3.5 feet off of Badger Road, basically right behind the curb. So we're still going to be within that planted terrace. It's all going to go away, basically, and just be a sidewalk. But it will run through that terrace, and we won't have to take any of their parking lots.
Oh, that's too bad. The reason I say that is that putting the sidewalk right next to Badger Road, I mean, it's better than what is there now, but it's going to be incredibly uncomfortable, I think, to walk so close to what can be a very busy road. And I'm imagining the winter when plowing comes in and snow and slush and salt and gross stuff gets thrown up on the sidewalk, or you get splashed walking along the sidewalk next to the road. So anyway, I was just trying to figure out exactly where the sidewalk was going to be. And it's really too bad that we can't, I mean, they've got such a gigantic parking lot. It's too bad we can't get some of their parking lot and move it on the other side of the planted terrace.
Yeah, if we could take all of these spots here, that'd be great. I will say that it does kind of slope back pretty steep here from the street. So we'd have to kind of, we really don't like to put sidewalk below the street level, and that's what we would have to do that. So, you know, I don't know if it would necessarily work, but in this case, I think the solution to the problem you're suggesting would be to bump out the curb into Badger Road, eliminate a lane, and just build the sidewalk the right way. But, you know, we're doing what we can, I think, in this scenario, unfortunately.
Okay.
Chris Pedikowski, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just real quick. We're trying to kind of do the minimum here to get the sidewalk in now. If we bought the full 8-foot terrace, we would be looking at damages for the parking lot and that sort of thing. So I do believe that, you know, if this property redevelops, then that would be the time when we would get our more standard terrace and cross section in there, typical section.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that this might be some future redevelopment and we might be able to get something a little bit better. But thank you.
Thanks, Robbie. Pepe, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I have a couple of questions. So this, just like Robbie, this might be just me being really bad at reading this engineering plans. But first question is part of the same project making or building, painting, etc., any kind of crossing, like crossing across Badger Road, or is it only for the sidewalk on one side and connecting to the corner with Park and Badger?
It's only for the sidewalk on this side. There's a sidewalk already on the other side. I think we had talked about a mid-block crossing. If everything went through and we, you know, you guys voted this down or something, we could do a mid-block crossing, I guess, instead. But that was only an or option, I think, is from what we discussed. But it's worth looking into, I think.
And this might be very close. I mean, if we're talking about only the section that is next to the Burger King land or lot, then it might be really close to the corner, so maybe it's not worth it doing another mid crossing there. But I guess connecting to my second question is, it looks like this plan specifically is only for the section where the Burger King lot is. What happens to everything up Badger Road? So maybe I'm wrong here with directions, or that's like northeast, to pointing to the right of the map. Like, I'm guessing the rest of the sidewalk will be the new development in charge of building the rest of the sidewalk there. I'm kind of like basing on looking at Google Maps and seeing how important it would be to expand this connection all the way from the corner to the high crossing over the belt line. Can you? I know it's probably not part of the same project, but can you share a little bit of how that all connects?
Chris has his hand up.
Yeah, so I think kind of our long-term corridor view of Badger Road would be multi-use path on the north side and a sidewalk on the south side, all the way from probably Fish Hatch to Rimrock. And we'll be kind of implementing that through various projects. You know, this is like one little piece of the sidewalk here. We have 2 TAP projects to build the path along Rusk Avenue and Rimrock. And then we're working with the fire department and their project to the west of Badger Road to make sure that part is in. So I think over the course of 4 or 5 different projects, that would be kind of the plan to build that cross section through.
Right, I remember couple transportation commissions ago, we looked at the one at Rusk and Badger in that corner, but I don't remember. Remind me, please, Chris. Did we talk about south on the sidewalk on the south side, or was that project focusing on the north side only?
That was the north side only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there still like a missing link that there's no project accounting for that section, or are we hoping that that new development is taking care of that new sidewalk on the south side?
So there, between the Burger King and then the Center for Black Excellence would get sidewalk all the way to the railroad bridge, and then we would have to get it over, I believe, to our overpass.
This is the site plan from that development. This kind of helps by.
Yeah, so
they're picking up
ultimately we'd
sidewalks
get
here.
the sidewalk over to the overpass on the south side.
Sweet. Yep. No, this is great. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Pepe. Other comments or questions? Because of the increased cost, we would need a motion to approve the project at the increased cost. Harold,
I would move to approve the project at the increased cost.
and Bill?
I would second that.
Okay, Harold, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, this seems like an important gap filling project, especially with the new development happening there. And yeah, it's unfortunate that past decisions have made this more expensive, but it's still worthwhile. Thanks.
Thanks. Discussion. Okay, I'm seeing no hands. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or wishes a roll call vote. Okay, I'm seeing no hands, so the motion is carried. Thanks, everybody. Okay, next item is review and approval of the TC annual work plan. And I want to thank everybody for all the excellent suggestions we had back in late June when we reviewed this last time. And it took a while to get back here for a lot of different reasons, but as I went back through my notes and watched the discussion again, there was really a lot of thoughtful comments and excellent suggestions which have been incorporated into the changes. So what you're seeing in this red line version is just the changes from what you saw at the end of June. And there's a link to the June discussion so you can see what that looked like back then, which was a really busy document because it was a comparison of the old TC work plan. So we're looking at a work plan from just through June of 2025, and we'll look at it again before then. Bill, did you have a comment before I keep going?
I would like to make a friendly change to your red line.
Okay, can I make my presentation first? Or
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
okay, I'll try and keep it brief. Well, I could just say that the changes are pretty well delineated in the red line version. And I went back and I have all the conversations here in terms of what went into those changes. And I just want to say one interesting comment that I thought of that I want to talk to Eric about offline and maybe talk to Christy Kumar and Rebecca Hoyt offline as well, was I had added something in from the TC ordinance into the racial equity and social justice section last time. And Chris brought this up and Christy chimed in and it was noted that this comment only listed 2 groups of people and it wasn't really wide enough to cover everybody. So we're taking it back out for that very reason. So an interesting thing for us to think about going forward as we look at ordinance changes is to make sure that the Civil Rights Division has an opportunity to look at these things and remind us of how inclusive we need to be as we're looking at ordinances. So that was a new thought that I wanted to bring forward so we can think about that going forward. So I think the changes are pretty well outlined. So Bill, go ahead with your comment.
I think one of the changes was the addition of the transition plan of taking it to the council.
Yes.
You mentioned in there the PROAG, and I'd like to add that before you say word PROAG is from the United States Access Board PROAG. So it's clearly understood what that document is, what that document is. It's not, it's kind of a interesting term. So.
Okay, so in front of public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, we say the United States Access Board Public Right-of-Way Accessibility Guidelines?
That's the only change I just to clarify, and this was.
Sure. All right. That's a very friendly amendment to our work. Other comments or questions? Carl?
Yeah, one question about the new section at the bottom of page 1, major special projects for this work plan year.
Yes.
I was wondering, would the Safe Streets for All, would that fall under one of these? Because I think that work is hopefully all under progress right now, and it seems to fit into similar categories, such as the curb management plan and the Reconnecting Communities grant.
So I'm going to defer to Renee or to Tom, because Tom, that's not what I basically did, Harold, was I looked at Tom's director reports and I pulled out the projects that he reports to us on periodically. And those are government grants. And I guess I didn't look at it as a project, and it's not something that's, I don't think, Tom, you normally comment on. So, Renee or Tom, your thoughts about adding Safe Streets for All? Would they be Safe Streets for All projects?
I'll defer to Renee first. I kind of I'm kind of the opinion of this all really fits under Safe Streets in our Vision Zero plan, but they are very distinct projects, and I think Renee's thought about it as well. So Renee.
Yeah, I mean, we have kind of 4.5-ish years of project work with our Safe Streets for All grant. So it definitely could be detailed out as its own thing in the work plan for periodic reports on the various components, because different components will be starting over the next several years. So
yeah, I'm happy to add it. So Safe Streets for All projects, would that be the right way to say it?
Yeah, I think that would be fair.
Carl,
yeah, and
does that sound good?
I'm not necessarily suggesting adding it, because I mean, if there is a project where you're rebuilding a street under the guise of Safe Streets for All, then that project is going to come to us. But as you said, I feel like Safe Streets for All might have some other components. It's not just specific projects. So I don't know. I don't have strong opinions whether it should be on there. I was just curious why it was not on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, as Carl said, there are the more typical infrastructure parts that would just kind of go through the normal, like any other project. And then there's some other things, like updating the HIN and doing some planning work and some demonstration projects. So I think it's fair to put it on there, because obviously some of those types of things would likely be coming as they, even if it's just the evaluation report or something. So.
Yeah, if you think so, Renee, if we call it Safe Streets for All projects.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Other comments? Okay, so what I have is the addition of United States Access Board just in front of public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. under the ADA transition plan and adding Safe Streets for All projects to the major specific projects at the bottom of page 1. Anything else? Are you comfortable making a motion with me making those changes and then sending it to Aiden to update that copy in Legistar? Carl?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so motion with the 2 changes that were suggested. Alder Martinez Rutherford?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Thank you very much to everybody for the thoughtful comments and the great participation in putting this work plan together. I'll update it later on and get it over to Aiden to put into Legistar, both the red line version and the clean version, and then ask Aiden to send it over and get the clean version up on the TC website. And then over the course of the next few months, we'll have an opportunity to look at it again as we plan for the next year. So thanks everybody very much. Okay, next we have update on Wisconsin Department of Transportation project, WITSDOT projects. Tom?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do this. This will actually be a little bit of a presentation. You know, the Wisconsin DOT has and is doing quite a bit in the Southwest region over the last couple of years. So I'm going to start the slideshow. Did you all see that slide in advance? Sometimes I share and, yep, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so these are some of the major Madison area projects in the coming years. The ones that are perhaps have a thinner line or more city-led and city-sponsored, and the ones with the thicker line are the ones that are sponsored by the Wisconsin DOT. So actually you can see there's a lot. And so we'll be getting emails from people who are complaining about construction for the next 10 years, right? Ones I'm going to focus on right now are going to be the Wisconsin DOT projects, which are the interstate, North Stoughton Road, and South Stoughton Road. On the interstate, I want to kind of highlight things that are of interest in that the north portion of the interstate project, which will include the 151 interchange, that'll be from 30 to 35. Note that the Badger interchange, which includes kind of that Milwaukee Street Bridge over the interstate, is scheduled from 38 to 45. You know, so that's like way far out there, right? So I don't know if it's a good thing that we're talking about it now or a bad thing, right? But at least we can see pretty far down the pike of what's happening. And then North Stoughton Road is from 28 to 33, and South Stoughton Road is probably from 30 to who knows when. Let's start with the I-3990-94 corridor study. They just issued a final EIS for this project last week. It went before the Transportation Projects Commission Monday, and it was recommended for approval. It still has to be incorporated in the state budget before they can begin implementing it. But that will occur this summer. Key Madison area elements include Hepker Road interchange, which many stakeholders in Madison particularly in the American Center, really wanted. A revised 151 interchange, which I think I've shown you before, and you can see a picture of it here. While it's bigger and higher, it does introduce a more urban element for East Washington Avenue. So overall, I think there are some positive benefits to it. A revised Badger interchange, and then a Milwaukee Street interchange, which would be in the 2040s. While much of this is way in the future, WSDOT would like to negotiate a cost sharing agreement for the Hepker Road interchange in the first quarter of 2025. So that's pretty soon. So even though this construction is way in the future, the Hepker Road interchange probably could occur between 28 and 32. And they would like to negotiate that. This is the recommended alternative there at Hepker Road. Note that it just shows the interchange. And this project actually ends up being a bigger deal than just that interchange, right? Because you have Portage Road, which is unimproved, that leads to the UW Hospital. And then you also have Hepker Road, which is unimproved, which leads to Sun Prairie and all of that commercial area. So while they have a concept for an interchange, there's a lot of supporting infrastructure that goes on with that. The Stone Road North study they released their environmental document, or it was signed last Friday, actually. I think Friday, quite late. It also went before the Transportation Projects Commission on Monday. It does not need the budget approval associated with the state budget like the I-90, 3990-94 project does, because it's part of their majors program, and it has a separate funding pot. There may be things in this project that many perhaps might not like. However, I'm going to say that probably this project went as well for Madison as it could have. It could have been much more disruptive and had much higher impacts than it will. Key elements of this on the North Stoughton Road, which is basically from Highway 30 to the north. There's one added lane in each direction. It has an at-grade intersection at the Stoughton Road East Washington Avenue. That was perhaps a major concession to Madison for that. They do have a separated shared use path on the east side of the corridor, except adjacent to the airport. And they have a grade separated ped bike overpass of East Washington. What I've shown here, these are graphics that came from the environmental assessment, and they're not, they're a little bit pixelated, so you can't really see the bicycle pedestrian infrastructure on it. So I'm showing the bicycle pedestrian infrastructure highlighted right here. This is right at Highway 30. So you can see on Highway 30, they have a grade separated crossing of Stoughton Road. Notice that they also have a path on the east side of Stoughton Road that leads up to East Washington. At East Washington, you can see that that path that goes to the East Washington Stoughton Road intersection. There is a grade separated crossing. This one's above East Washington. It curly kind of cues down over where the Subway sandwich shop is, and then it goes to the north. While this has one added lane in each direction, and it's a rather large intersection. Like I said, compared to some of the other alternatives, such as diamond interchanges and the like, this one probably has the greatest, fits in the best contextually to what Madison wants. As I said, this, I'm not sure if I have another slide. I don't. So I'm gonna go back up.
Tom, can we stop for a second? Tom Alderfield has his hand up.
Yes.
I can wait, Chair, if you prefer to take questions at the end, or I can
Well,
ask.
actually, I think I have a very small presentation on I-39 and 94 and a very small presentation on Stoughton Road North study. The presentation on the South study is quite long and detailed, and so this would be a good time to take questions.
Okay, let me just ask, do we have anybody registered to speak on this, Aiden?
We do have one person, yep.
Okay, so our normal process would be to have the presentation, then have, hear from the public, and then have comments and questions.
Understood and happy to wait. Thank you, Chair.
Does that work?
Yes, that works.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Okay, write down your question because I've got another 20 slides. This is the typical section. I'm really not going to go through this too much, but it's available. So, as I said, the WISA has been very focused on Dane County projects. We were hoping that after they got approval for the North Stoughton Road and the interstate, that they would there'd be a slow period, but there's not. Right? They're moving forward with the South Stoughton Road. They had a public meeting that was very well attended for a Wisconsin DOT public meeting, I think 2 weeks ago at La Folla High School. I'll give you some information from that. Right now, they have about 5 or 6 conceptual alternatives. They would like to narrow it down to 3 by this March. Okay. And then they would like to select a preferred alternative by August of 2025. And while that seems like, oh, that's pretty far into the future, that's really light speed in DOT time. And that's kind of light speed in educating the public of what's going on and how big these improvements could be. We do not, the city does not have to comment, but the process will not wait for our comments, right? The process will go forward and our opportunity to influence those alternatives is kind of now. The purpose and need is to improve safety and mobility for all modes of travel and improve community connectivity guided by local plans and goals. Just for context, just so that we kind of understand, what are we talking about? Kind of what's the heart of this project? Right now, Stoughton Road functions like an expressway without great intersections. I don't know what the official speed limit is, but I suspect that most people drive 50. If you look, this is Stoughton Road looking south. If you look to the right, we have commercial types of properties that are kind of like the Blaine's Farm and Fleet, and the A1 furniture and those types. So it's on the right, it's more retail, the type 1-story retail, To the left, you find a lot of light industrial, like Womatic pumps. There's another pump manufacturer. Light industrial industry that's, it's things that all communities kind of need. At the same time, we look at this context right now. The planning department is also going through the Southeast Area Plan. And they just had their kickoff meeting for the Southeast Area Plan last week. Unfortunately, it's going to take them about probably 2 years to go through their Southeast Area Plan. And the Wisconsin DOT is probably going to make a preferred alternative selection by
Did we lose Tom?
Tom, did you freeze up or something? Did we lose Tom? I don't know, Ariane?
It
Ariana,
looks like, yeah, it looks like Tom's frozen, unfortunately. So Tom might have to log out and log back in.
I don't know, Tom, if he can hear us or not. It looks like he just bopped off and he'll come back on again.
Yeah, so while Tom is logging back in, I want to report that the current speed limit for Stoughton Road is 55 miles per hour. That's the at the highest point.
Okay.
Yeah, now Tom
Here's
is back.
Tom. Okay, Tom's back. All right. You froze up on us there, Tom. We can't hear you though. You're gonna have to unmute. Can you get yourself unmuted, Tom?
Yes, now
There
I
you
can.
go.
Okay,
There you go.
so I think my computer froze up. So I'm wondering if someone could perhaps present the PDF that's in the Legistar for this item.
Can somebody, either Aiden or Yang or somebody, pull that up for Tom and share it? Screen share it for him?
I'm happy to do that. So let me bring that up and yeah, get to it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yang.
Apologize for this.
Technology.
Well, this is why I worry about self-driving cars. I'm in a self-driving car and it does this. What happens? I don't.
Yeah.
That was a side comment. That one was for free.
Yeah. I happen to share those same concerns about self-driving cars myself.
Yeah. Yang, are you able to share the PDF?
There he comes.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Yang.
You're welcome. Let me get to the page. And then I'll enter full screen as well.
Go to the next slide.
Yep.
Next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to progressively disclose this, but there's really 5 main alternatives that they're studying. I'll wait for Yang to. One of them is essentially the existing corridor, right? The way it is. And on the left, you can see the schematic where we have a signal at Buckeye, we have a signal at Flom, we have frontage roads on either side. Okay, the signals have relatively long signal cycles, like about 2 minutes. Alternative 1 is that it's at 45 miles an hour. Alternative 2, is at 35 miles an hour, kind of giving a nod to some of the city of Madison's comments.
With illegal collusion, the judge also said it left a lot of money.
The alternative 3 basically would keep the frontage road configuration on the west side, which would serve Blaine's Farm and Fleet and the like. But then some of the lower traffic generators like Boomatic Pump, A to Z rental, and that kind of thing might have direct access on Stoughton Road. Alternative 4 basically would create, I'm going to say somewhat of a parkway, but it would eliminate the frontage roads. So basically we would have direct access. Businesses like Farm and Fleet or A1 Furniture or something to that effect would have direct access onto Stoughton Road. It would be 35 miles an hour. And basically the area taken up by the frontage roads would become open space. An alternative 5 is something that we have kind of asked them to consider, and it functions very similarly to a one-way pair system in that if you put the roadways on the outside, the distance between the northbound and the southbound is not that much different than the distance between Johnson and Gorham. And so you could actually have 2 one-way streets. I think this is called, WSDOT is calling this a wide boulevard. Is it wide boulevard? I think it is. Just to provide a little bit more user-friendly thing. The thing about all 5 that's interesting is that the green space would be in the center, right? We would have direct access on the Highway 51, but the the signals. Notice that instead of 1 signal at Buckeye Road, we would have 2 signals, right? And the 1 signal that typically would be a 6 to 8 phase signal and would be 2 minutes, like in all 4, is actually 2 separate signals, and they're 2 to 3 phases, and they're maybe a minute and 20-second cycle length. So it would function a little bit more efficiently for progression and the like. Yang, next slide. This is a handout. This is actually, when you want to try and figure out what are these alternatives, this slide actually provides a very good summary of the 6 alternatives that are being considered right now. You can see all 4 and all 5 have direct access. Both have direct access onto Stoughton Road. One places the green on the outside. One places the green on the inside. Okay, next slide. All 4, we are trying to find good existing examples of what all 4 would look like. There's a couple of roads that service light industrial, like in Pleasant Prairie. So this is a picture of that. It's not exactly like all 4 would look like because we don't have as much direct access onto the street in this picture as perhaps there would be with the Stoughton Road alternative. Next slide. This is something that Liz Callan found. This is Highway 50 in Kenosha. Again, most of the green space is placed on the outside of the roadway. We have direct access onto it. Not as many driveways as perhaps might occur. Next slide. This is similar to all 5, okay? And this one is in Bloomington, Indiana. I think it's called Miller Showers Park. But you can see we have kind of one-way streets on both sides with a path on the east side of the park. And then we have, trees or something in the middle. Next slide. This one is something, this is actually a project I worked on when I worked for a different employer. I did the traffic analysis. This is Lick Run Greenway in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so this really functions kind of as a one-way pair. You can see that we have direct access onto the one-way pair with marginally spaced driveways. In this particular feature, it's there's a drainage feature. I want to kind of offer a taste of reality in that this is a beautiful picture, right? And probably we would not get something this attractive, let's say for Stoughton Road, right? We're probably not going to have a drainage way and walkways and the like, but we could have some type of green area that, that is more than a gravel shoulder. Next slide. Generally, all the alternatives with frontage roads, which includes alternatives 1 through 3, relocate them near the intersections. And so this shows what that might look like near Buckeye Road. So there you could see, you know, there's an auto parts store there in the southwest quadrant. You can see how, you know, that would be rerouted to address the problem of kind of where, you know, the confusion that occurs when frontage roads join a cross street directly adjacent to the main intersection. Next slide. Alternative 3 and possibly alternative 4 could include jug handles. So a jug handle is similar to what Junction Road has with Mineral Point Road right now, where the cross street has a bridge over the main roadway. And then from the main roadway to get to the cross street, you would take right turns onto these side roads. This is just a conceptual jug handle at Buckeye Road. Next slide. One thing that the project team in the southwest region of WSDOT has been very amenable to is considering additional cross-street connections. Here you have potential ones. Generally, these cross streets, I think alternative 3 includes Alice Avenue, and then alternatives 4 and 5 could include all the others. So that provides more crossing opportunities. Note that what the cross streets would do is, you know, they would make this into more of an urban street, right? But if you're in a neighborhood adjacent to Stoughton Road, you may not want all these cross streets. You can see how they would say, why would we want more cross streets? And so there's a little bit of tension in that there's a desire to make this into more of an urban street, but then a lot of adjacent neighborhoods are used to the way things are and wouldn't want to necessarily change the environment. Next slide. One thing that was not included at the public information meeting, and we had hoped had been dismissed, was the concept of a super street. A super street uses a series of kind of left in and U-turns to eliminate the need to serve cross streets. So for motor vehicle operations, it's very effective at reducing delay on the main volume. I think they can be confusing. I can provide a little bit more summary there with the next slide. So let's say if you were on, I believe this is Flom Road. If you were heading south on Stoughton Road and you needed to go to Flom Road, you would just go south and take a left, right? If you're heading south on Stoughton Road and you needed to go to the west side of Flom Road, you would go down and take a right. So you see how from Stoughton Road, the access to the two side roads is pretty straightforward. However, if you're on Flom Road and you need to cross Flom Road, it's more difficult. You would actually have to take a right at Stoughton Road and then take a U-turn, as you can see in that top box, and then travel back down and take a right turn. So this is a Wisconsin DOT slide. You know, it would maintain the frontage roads. You know, they say there's safety and operational benefits. There's also indirection benefits or indirection considerations. Why don't you do the next slide, Yang? So I'll give you an example. You know, I'm the father of 4 kids, and they're all out of the house and paying taxes and leading productive lives, and I'm glad for it. But I always think about, you know, what was it like when they were in high school? And so this is the attendance shed for a La Follette High School student, right? You can see it in orange on the right. And so a student going, let's say they were driving to school at La Follette, which is that orange kind of rectangle thing, they would travel west on Flom Road. They would take a right. They would then make a U-turn, and then they would take a right again. So you can see that it doesn't cross. And so in some ways there's you know, I want WSDOT to be fair to us and things we're asking them to consider. So I want to be fair to them as well. So this does provide operational benefits, but in essence, it almost separates the west side and the east side of Stoughton Road more because you can't go across anymore. Next slide. There is a way to cross as a pedestrian. You typically in these, I guess, you cross diagonally. So to the on the illustration on the left, this was an illustration by Kindleson. You know, you would, in order to cross Stoughton Road, you'd have to be on the left side of the intersection, cross there, travel across this median, then cross again. It's the one on the left is a little bit more. It's probably showing it a little bit better than it actually would be because that illustration shows only 2 lanes in both directions instead of 3 lanes in both directions. And then you can see the curb radii at the corners are very tight, which we would like to see in a downtown, but the design vehicle for these intersections would be a semi. And so the radii would be much higher. So the crossing distances would be quite high. The picture on the right is a picture I took, I think, a year ago while I was down on Flom Road, and it was a parent with some kids trying to cross it. So, you know, these are the users that we're trying to get, you know, across Stoughton Road. And then on the left is kind of what the super street would do. Next slide. Wisconsin and the public positions are really quite varied. Some can accept a lower speed facility. Some are advocating for maintaining mobility. I'd like to say, you know, WSDOT is well, first I want to say that WSDOT has given us unprecedented access into their process. We've probably been invited to, you know, anywhere from 15 to 20 design meetings for this project, which is quite a bit. WSDOT it's not a single body. It's a group of people, right? And I'm going to say that the people in the Southwest region are very accepting of some of our suggestions and responsive to that. And I'm going to say that there's some people in central office that are more responsible for the full statewide that have strong reservations about what Madison is asking for. Next slide. The WSDOT, one thing that they do is they place a strong emphasis on what they get on these little Survey Monkey surveys, right? And so we think, oh, so you got a Survey Monkey and you got this. That doesn't necessarily reflect the city's position, but I think WisDOT believes that it really does kind of reflect what many people in the city think. So this is a survey that they conducted post PIM. The blue bars represent the TAC, LOAC, and CAC. But basically what you know, those are fancy acronyms for basically city staff and officials. And so the blue represents kind of a group of up to 16, right? Whereas the yellow is more the public, the average public person, right? And so that, I think right now that's at 300 or a little bit more. So you can see where most of the public officials or city staff on the left greatly favor reducing the speed. You know, greatly favor reducing the speeds, 75%. However, you can see that the public is 50-50. Why would we want to reduce the speed, right? It's just going to take us longer to get places. And so the neighborhoods don't necessarily, can't necessarily envision why speed reduction would be a big thing, right? If you look at the frontage roads, I think a lot of city staff are saying, why do we need the frontage roads, right? Because if you count the frontage roads and then the mainline lanes, you have 10 lanes of traffic, 10 traffic lanes to serve 50,000 vehicles. That's a lot of pavement to serve 50,000 vehicles. And so a lot of the city officials and representatives feel like we should maybe investigate something other than those frontage roads. But if you look at the yellow, you could say, which is the neighborhoods, they say, well, why would we want to get rid of the frontage roads? They've done us well for 40 years. You see what I'm saying? And then the same thing with the new intersections. City staff and officials think, yeah, it would be good to have some intersections between this mile spacing, which is in blue. But you can see in the yellow where some neighborhoods say, why would we want a street that connects to that freeway over there? We kind of like our neighborhood blocked off. So this is a survey that's done. This is interim results. It's not the final survey. Then next slide, Yang. This survey is still open. You can take this, and I think that QR code will work. I developed that last night. Like the Transportation Commission, you guys have a voice in what happens in Madison transportation, right? And so if you feel like there's value in having a slower Stoughton Road, I would encourage you to take the survey, because you perhaps, as a Transportation Commission, you probably understand the transportation issues facing Madison more broadly than someone who is just used to seeing transportation from a small portion of the city. So, like I'm going to say, we will probably respond to WisDOT on these alternatives in an official capacity, but they do place a lot of emphasis on what these survey monkeys happen. And so I would encourage you to participate if you have feelings regarding this. Next slide. The staff recommendations right now is that we've been advocating for a slower, more urban facility. We believe that alternatives 4 and 5 probably have the greatest potential to meet this objective. We might have a slight preference for alternative 5 just because having 2 snappy signals, that one-way pair is kind of an attractive operational concept, but we could see 4 as well. we just saw the super street maybe yesterday or 2 days ago. I think we have some strong reservations regarding the super street in that we're concerned about pedestrian bike crossings, but then also, we're hoping that, the west neighborhoods and the east neighborhoods could be linked to a greater degree with the project. And yet, in essence, it seems like the super street is actually separating them perhaps a little bit further. Now that's my opinion. So I don't want to be, you guys can determine if the U-turn and the right is easier or not. Next question, next slide. Some considerations, some people, because these are questions that come up. In 2021, late 2021, WSDOT said, why don't we just give this road to you, right? We would like to, and if they gave the road to us, then we would perhaps have a little bit more influence on it. At that time, we kind of said, we're not sure we really want this road. Part of it was, then all of a sudden we have to plow it, right? We have to sweep it. It's about $500,000 in annual operating expenditures. About $5 million in annual maintenance expenditures associated with patching and the like. And then in 2062, we would be responsible for reconstructing, which would be $100 million, right? Then there's maybe this, there's a little bit of a philosophical thought is that, Wisconsin Department of Transportation provides transportation for the state, but part of the state is urban roads, right, in urban areas, and shouldn't they also have investment in solving urban transportation? So there's a little bit of philosophy in that. If we were to have it, it doesn't necessarily guarantee we'd be able to reduce capacity or have full discretion over what's happening because, Stoughton Road will still be on the National Highway System. And while we have some latitude on John Nolan Drive, there's many things that we can't do on John Nolan Drive that we would like to, because it's still on the National Highway System. And then a lot of people, or some people have thought, well, if we did this alternative 5 where we have a very large median, maybe Wisconsin DOT could give us that right of way, and we could build buildings in that right of way, and it could be just like Johnson Forum. And that might be an opportunity way in the future, but I think initially we probably have to make decisions as if that's not a possibility. It's really uncertain. First, WSDOT would have to say that they would never need that median for future needs, which, that's a pretty strong commitment, right? Vacating that right away would, could be a 10-year process. Oftentimes we might have to purchase it if it's going to be, and so you think about, well, how much would it cost to purchase 30 acres? And, it could be significant. And thought is if we were to assume the jurisdiction of this, right, why would we choose, Stoughton Road over Park Street or East Washington? Our Park Street and East Washington are also state roads, and we probably have a little bit greater interest in those than we might in Stoughton Road. So those are just kind of like an asterisk sidebar. Next slide. And then we have a bunch of exercises, which we're not gonna go into the exercise. So if we could go, Yang, to that one slide that kind of is a schematic that shows all 5 alternatives. That's probably a good one just to have up on the screen while we answer questions and have discussion.
Okay, why don't we hear from the public first, Tom?
That'd be fine.
Aiden, who do we have registered to speak?
Gabriel Hill of Presidential Lane neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi, so my comment is mostly in regards to this South Stoughton Road part from 18 to 30. And all the options seem pretty bad. The no build option, option 1 and option 2 all don't address what I think I don't want to put any words in the alders' mouths, but I think they talked about more just a desire of like connection across the road between districts. I had it pulled up. 15, 16, and 16. I don't know if those alders are here today, but they can comment more on that. But the footprint remains ridiculously large in those 3 options. It's 275 feet across both frontage roads and the main highway. This is more than the belt line. And as we know, it's too big for what the road needs. My data is a little bit out of date, but I think the road gets 10,000 less cars per day than roads like East Washington or University Avenue. So it just seems like overbuilt for what's needed for those options. Then alternates 3 and 4 just turn Stoughton Road into a design that is similar to the roads that consistently appear on our high injury network. And it would create way more conflict points, both for turning vehicles, pedestrians, just in general. Options 3 and 4 just would turn it into kind of another, I want to say like East Washington, where you really it's prevalent on our high injury network. Alternate 5 seems like the worst of all options. It retains the large footprint, adds the most conflict points, and is sure to appear on our high injury network if we build that. The green space that the document talks about creating would never really be used because it's frankly an island. It's not like the image that's shown where it's like a nice like river. Oh, I'm getting echo. Oh, okay. It's a nice river, and it doesn't really like it's not like the other image where it's like kind of in an area that has nice things around it. So it's just like it would just be this island of green space. What I'd like to see as a goal for this area is to try to bump any through traffic out to I-90 where it really needs to be. Like if you're going from what is it, like Stoughton or McFarland, and you're going north of Madison, you really shouldn't be taking this road. It doesn't make sense to have it go through the city when we already have a bigger, better, faster road that is almost the same time right nearby. So I'd also like a goal to allow the interconnectivity across the road, and that the alders have asked for. I think, again, I don't want to put words in their mouths. Keep the safe street and allow space for local trucks to still have access to businesses, and reduce the size of the road to a size that fits the needs. Now, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I think like reducing the speed limit to 40 or less would be great. This would make Google Maps route people up to I-90 if they're going through. A reduction to 1 lane in each direction would be great. And on Flom and Buckeye, add grade separation, like I think was talked about in the project. That would be excellent. Or if that's too expensive, then the truck-friendly roundabouts that we see out near, out past the Beltline on Mineral Point that they added. I don't know whose district that falls under, if that was us or if that's the state that added that. But also narrowing the frontage roads could be done. Nobody really parks on those, and the traffic is minimal for their size. I think Dutch style frontage roads could allow for better access to the businesses for both trucks and customers. And sorry, I have more,
Yeah.
but my time is up.
That is your time. Thank you so much. Questions for the registrant? Okay, thank you very much. So comments or questions for Tom? Alderfield, yes, go ahead. You're first on the list.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Tom. Lots of good info. I'm wondering about the timing of that bridge over Stoughton Road, just south of Highway 30. I know that it's in the Transportation Improvement Plan for, I believe, 2030, the year 2030. But to what extent is that timeline driven by potential construction along the Stoughton Road corridor that the state may be making decisions about?
Yeah. So I'm going to say two things, and one is if Gabriel Hill stays on, I'll answer some of his questions, because I think he had some interesting things to say. And then for you, Alderfield, are you speaking specifically of the 94 project? Because there's so many projects, it's easy to get through. The Milwaukee Street Bridge over the interstate right now is scheduled for very late, 2042. Very long.
Yeah, I understood that part. No, I mean the pedestrian bridge over Stoughton Road, south of Highway 30, as part of the Stoughton Road corridor piece of all of this.
So that would, I think that would be in the 2030s. I'm not sure. I think that particular one, I think, is an underpass. So that would be an underpass. And then over East Washington, it would be an overpass. I believe that North Stoughton Road is part of their majors program. I believe it's planned for the 2030s, but I haven't seen a sequencing schedule for that. I think anecdotally, I remember a conversation from talking with the DOT project manager saying that they might start at the north end because that's simple. The north end is much simpler than the area by East Washington and Highway 30. But I could go back and ask if they've developed a staging plan for that.
So it is the city's own transportation improvement plan that engineering maintains that currently shows, I think, a bridge crossing Stoughton under Highway 30, although I could totally be misinterpreting that. If it's planned for 2030, but I guess it sounds like the state is going to be the one who makes a decision about the timing of it, even if the city prefers 2030, huh?
I think I haven't looked at that, but we've been coordinating with Chris Petakowski. I think the state is willing to put the underpass there, but they are not willing to connect the underpass to our path system. And so engineering has to put in the SIP money so that we can pay for the path connections to the underpass. And this underpass, I don't know if it's an underpass or overpass. I really should know that. We have been discussing this for about 4 years. And so I think Chris Petakowski put it in their budget so that we have funding available to make a commitment to the DOT that we will pay for the connections to this underpass.
Okay, I'll probably start an email thread between Chris and yourself and I and talk through this more. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Martinez Rutherford, go ahead.
Yeah, Tom, I probably missed this because ADHD and everything, but the only place that I really saw pedestrian infrastructure was when you showed the super street, which seems terrible, by the way. But I'm mostly concerned about getting students across the street safely back and forth, especially there around Flom. Are they taking that into consideration?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about all of the alternatives will have much better longitudinal bike ped accommodations, and they will be protected. I think they haven't developed them exactly, but they would be consistent with all ages and abilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the cross streets, what you say is correct. That's more challenging, and I think when you have an ag-grade intersection, it's very difficult to get students across or any pedestrians across, right? If you have a jug handle or a grade separated intersection, all of a sudden the conflict exposure is quite a bit less. But then all of a sudden you have a different type of facility, right? You have something that borders on an expressway, not an urban roadway. And so I'm going to say kind of the executive branch of the city has tended to prefer kind of more urban at grade solutions. Both are kind of things that could be explored. Easier crossing for peds and bikes if you have a jug handle, but then all of a sudden then you have an expressway type of facility. Hey, on that note, Ann, do you mind if I just make 3 comments regarding Gabriel Hill's testimony?
Sure, that's fine. He looks like he's still listening there, Tom.
Okay, good. So one, I feel like what he said about alternative 5 is correct. If we were to have a wide median, it's unlikely that that median would be activated. It just probably wouldn't be activated. We would still have the advantage of 2 separate signals, right? The width of the corridor is kind of the width of the corridor. They have 250 feet, and they're probably not going to give back any more than 200. They're going to keep the 250 feet. It's just where do we and how do we want the facilities to be in that 250 feet? And then many people say, well, why do we need an expressway here and an expressway on the interstate? And initially I look at the maps and I say, yes, I agree with that. But the funny thing is that no one in the East Madison neighborhoods have access to the interstate, right? So the interstate basically might serve people from Sun Prairie or DeForest, but our Madison neighborhoods don't have access to the interstate and they never will. So what ends up happening is Stoughton Road, I don't know, but like we like to point fingers on the cars that are on Stoughton Road and says it's those people that are causing the problem, but those people are really our people. It's us that are filling Stoughton Road, which is why, WSDOT wanted to give us that road, because they say it's your people that are on this road, why don't you just take it? And then the volumes on Stoughton Road are pretty much comparable to what we have on University Avenue. And right now on University Avenue, we have 3 lanes in both directions and there's congestion. And so as much as we want to fight it, we're probably going to end up with 3 lanes on Stoughton Road, particularly if it remains in the Wisconsin DOT's jurisdiction. It would be nice to have everything as a 2-lane roadway like Sherman Avenue, but it's carrying, close to 50,000 cars a day. One anecdotal thing is with the introduction of the flex lane, Stoughton Road and the Bell Line are actually carrying a little bit more traffic, and East Washington is actually carrying a little bit less traffic. Which I guess if we had our druthers, that's not a bad thing for us. Having less traffic volume in East Washington is probably better because we have more urban concentration in East Washington. So thank you for allowing me to just address those.
Yeah, no, helpful information. Other comments or questions for Tom? And feedback on what you prefer. Harold.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, lots of projects, lots of material to digest. I'll start with the North Stoughton Road study. Can you clarify the bike path? So you said there will be a bike path, but there will not be one along the airport. Is there a map of this to figure out?
There is, and if you email me, I can perhaps provide you. I think we have consistently said that we wanted to provide a path adjacent to Stoughton Road, similar to what occurs on Highway 12 to Sauk City. You know, that's, I mean, it's not a great place to bike, but it's a safe place to bike. The airport has consistently said that we can't have a path because it introduces a new new use, right? It's been our position, right, that says, well, no, there are already pedestrians and cyclists on Stoughton Road, particularly in the runway clear areas, because you know, UPS has a new facility on North Stoughton Road, and it has shift work, and people sometimes have to walk to that shift work, which is terrible. But I think you know, federal agencies have deference to federal agencies, and so the Federal Aviation, FAA, you know, has kind of said to FHWA that you can't do this, right? It violates our standards, and so we are not going to allow that. That's what the airport has said. We have not been able to push that because of kind of the current dynamics with the airport, the county, the city, and the state. We could add a comment to that and try and get that. There's basically the gap in the bike path goes from Kinsman, I think, to about Hepker. To WisDOT's credit, from Hepker to the north, they reintroduced, or maybe it's from Hanson to the north, they reintroduced that path and goes farther north. And so if you'd like to talk more about that, I would. We've given our comments. They've said no. We have different county leadership right now, and they have an environmental document where we can comment on, and we could actually push that issue a little bit more. The FAA came out with new advisory circulars, I think in 2019 or 2020, which were a little bit more restrictive. So like, you know, basically I had people looking at airports around the nation that had paths, you know, off the runways, thinking, well, we're going to show them. And but there's new guidance out there that's a little bit more restrictive than what was allowed previously.
Yeah, that seems incomprehensible to me. You have like a 6-lane road, and on the other side, like it's on the east side of the highway, you have a bike path, and that is somehow a problem that, yeah, I have a hard time comprehending that. So yeah, maybe we can connect.
Yeah. So
offline
please do
about
that. Please email me.
Yeah.
I'll put up in my task list.
Yes. Okay. Next. So Stoughton North is also adding a lane, a general travel lane. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
Even though volumes are drastically lower, and even WisDOT's often optimistic projections for travel volumes even say like, oh yeah, it's going to be like 20-something thousand, and they're still adding a lane.
Actually, I think it's much more than 20,000. I think I'm writing this. I'm writing down airport in my notes just so that but I'll still forget. So you still should email me.
Will do.
I think Wisconsin DOT's first the traffic forecast. We like to blame it on Wisconsin DOT, but really they're our traffic forecasts, right? They are prepared by the Madison Planning Organization, which is kind of a separate, but underneath the city of Madison. The people that prepare those traffic forecasts are like they're competent, they do their job well, right? I think what happens is that, I think the city of Madison is willing to live with more congestion than what Wisconsin DOT is willing to live with, as well as FHWA is willing to live with. Like, whereas we are saying, well, you know, if there's a roadway in the border, if we can reduce capacity, the city of Madison will say, well, let's see if we can do it. Maybe it's not that bad. The Wisconsin DOT is not that way, and then the Federal Highway Administration is not that way. We are going to be undergoing an administration change, which is probably going to be more traditional in their view of transportation, more motor vehicle dominated rather than not. So I kind of anticipate it to be that way again. You know, we could change all of this if we were willing to accept jurisdiction of the roadway. But then again, if we're going to accept jurisdiction of the roadway, let's do Park Street. You know, let's do something that's perhaps a little bit more important to the city, right?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at, I'm reasonably sure that what they have in their maps is like along the airport, it's like 13,000 vehicles projected to go to like 15.
Oh, you're talking about up there.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not sure we're adding a lane up there. We're adding a lane through this section that you're seeing right here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of the heart from 30 up to, let's say, Anderson. You know, that's kind of we're adding.
Okay. Where their map has it at like 28,000 projected in 2050 and currently 25,000.
Yeah, really, north of Kinsman, it's essentially a rural roadway, right? And we will never really develop north of Kinsman because we have an airport there, right? And so the characteristics north of Kinsman are going to be more similar to like what Highway 12 is, Sauk City, right? And they probably won't change just because of the airport.
So the additional lane would be only up to East Wash then?
No, I think it extends, you know, the approaches to the intersections will be important to them. I suspect that it probably pushes through Anderson, and then they probably do some geometric magic to bring it down to 2 lanes in each direction north of Kinsman. I'm not sure if I have a detailed PDF of the proposed lane configuration. You can see even with this graphic right here that came out of their environmental document. It's somewhat pixelated, so it's difficult to see exactly what's happening. But right here, you know, if you zoomed in, you could see that we have 3 lanes in both directions, not 2 lanes in both directions.
Yeah, I guess feedback on the alternatives, like I think getting rid of the frontage roads is a good thing. We definitely don't want to have a 45-mile-an-hour 10-lane, like 6+4. That seems bad. It seems very unfortunate that we get all this new green space, but it will be wasted space and not really change the feel. I mean, if there is any possibility that that green space could be used for something, it seems like it might be easier in Alt 4, where, like, as you said, the area plan is being developed. As those property redevelops, if you suddenly have an additional, I don't know how many feet that is, that could maybe be gradually, that seems maybe slightly more realistic than having that island and doing something with that. But if that's not feasible anyway, then yeah, I'm not totally sure if I find your argument about the signal phasing for the crossing a pretty strong one, even though, yeah, I don't like what it looks like in Alt 5 necessarily. I have great concerns about the crossings. I mean, WisDOT says it's about safety and mobility, but for whom? Really seems to be for car occupants primarily. And I just looking at those design alternatives, thinking about what it's like to cross. I mean, I know what it's like to cross there now. And it's hard to imagine the new options making it much safer or more comfortable for people going across. As you said, north-south seems great improvement, but the crossings are not, and probably Alt5 might open up some possibilities more so. But yeah, it's not great. I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Harold. Other comments or questions for Tom? Or preferences? A lot of information, Tom. Robbie, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just jump in with, I guess, an opinion that, yeah, I'm disappointed that there isn't a possibility for redevelopment. Alt4, what you end up getting is, basically a roadway with no, I guess, visual narrowing, because all the uses are so far back from the roadway. Yes, you're gonna have green space, but it just is open space. So you end up it feels like a big highway with a bunch of green on the sides, kind of like an interstate feels. Alt5, the one advantage is that it looks like we might be able to have more crossings. And also, you could, if you were on a bicycle or on foot or anything else outside of a car, you could take those one-way streets one by one instead of needing to cross the entire space in one big swoop. So you would start near where the land uses are. That also provides a little bit more, I guess, visual interest, maybe cues that there are land uses there, even though right now they're all pretty low density. There's at least some cues that there are people and uses next to you. And then you would cross a one-way street, and then you would be in a green zone, and then you would cross another one-way street. And then you would be next to other uses. So I guess neither 4 or 5 are great, but my understanding is that 4 gives you the possibility of a few more crossings. And I think that the options for people using slower speed transportation will make it easier to cross the entire corridor in Alt5 than in Alt4. So that's, I guess, one advantage that I would see of that one.
Thanks, Robbie. You use the words. I should maybe mention that, maybe to augment the Survey Monkey that they're conducting, I will send a letter under my name kind of advocating for certain things. And you use the word visual narrowing, and I think that's a good word. I'm going to find a way to fit that in the letter. Probably being honest, with the land uses that we have there now, they have such big parking lots in the front. We may not get that, right? We just might not, because Farm and Fleet has great tools, but they have a big parking lot, right? And so we just won't get there. I think you do make an interesting point. Like, even with a left turn lane, right? Alt5, a pedestrian would cross 4 lanes, right? But with Alt4, they would cross perhaps 9 to 10 lanes. So it's kind of the difference between crossing Johnson Street versus crossing East Washington, right? And Johnson Street has its own problems, but it's easier to cross in East Washington, I think. And so that's an interesting thought.
Okay, other comments or questions? Pepe, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Tom, for the presentation. Just a quick question on alternative 5. I know you mentioned that, and some other people have mentioned it too, but can you elaborate on the fact that it's like it wouldn't be developed? Like what are we meaning by like developed, meaning like actual construction there? But to kind of further my question, does that mean that no path, no like running path / trees or something can be built in that median to make it more appealing for like people for going running there or something like that to be utilized?
I think it, when I mean not developed, meaning we wouldn't get to put buildings there.
Okay.
So I was a project manager for the Monona Drive project, right? And you may not know that, but that used to be Highway 51. So the right of way was held under title for the Wisconsin DOT. And so we, to kind of manage the parking spaces or whatever, we actually gave a little bit of that right of way to some of the adjacent landowners so that they could keep some parking. And we actually had to pay the Wisconsin DOT like $300,000 or something like that. It was not inexpensive. And that's on a road that was not even their road. You know what I mean? Monona Drive wasn't their road, and so I think as much as we would like to, develop the median of Stoughton Road, and perhaps it's a long-term dream, I don't know if we should allow dreams to affect our decision. The reality is that probably in the near term, it would have to have a transportation use, which could include paths, it could include trees, but it probably couldn't include transferring ownership so that someone could build a building in the middle, if you know what I mean.
So then building a path or putting trees there would be considered development?
No, I think
Okay.
those would be legitimate uses. Putting a Starbucks coffee, probably.
Right.
That kind of thing, we probably couldn't do that.
Yeah, and I generally, just to be clear, I generally agree with what has been said, like it's like we're looking at like imperfect solutions, of course, like none of them is like just the ideal one. Trying to find ways around it. Where I come from, you can see highways where people drive probably faster than 35 or 45 miles an hour with medians like that, where you would guess like, oh, who would like to go running or for a jog in there? And you would guess no one, but the fact is that just opening those spaces, and if you have enough safe crossings, people will go there and spend some time over there, run in the median, and if you put benches, people will sit there and read a book. Just trying to think around alternatives if we were to go with alternative 4 or 5, you know what I mean?
That all you had then, Pepe? Okay, thanks. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, along those, well, somewhat similar lines. If you could maybe go to the next slide that has the renderings of the 4 or 5 alternatives. Yeah, that one. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to overinterpret that, or maybe I'm squinting too much, but I mean, I am noticing that the paths vary between the alternatives. And so I think when you provide feedback to WisDOT, making sure that, for example, if Alt 5 happens, and it seems like the only white path is the one in the middle, which like what happens at the intersection, whereas on the side, it looks like it's only regular sidewalks. So I think making sure that in any kind of configuration, we have two-way bike paths on both sides of the road, I think is really important because, yeah, the crossings are going to be difficult. So we have to ensure two-way mobility and access on both sides. There should be plenty of space to make that happen, unless you have even more frontage roads, I suppose.
Okay. All good comments, all great suggestions. Other comments or questions for Tom? Okay, I'm seeing no more hands. Did you get what you needed, Tom? Did you need anything else tonight?
No, maybe just I'll alert the commission that we'll probably send a letter to influence the DOT in the next month, to help them screen. I would encourage the Transportation Commission that if you have opinions to do the survey, because WSDOT takes those surveys seriously. And then maybe just a foreshadowing that we will probably have to negotiate some type of cost sharing agreement with the interstate.
Okay. Any last comments or questions before we move on? Okay, thanks, Tom. Renee, East Madison Bikeways.
Yes, welcome. And Sean is here too.
Okay. Hey, Sean.
Yeah. So we are just coming back. We want to finalize our plans for East Mifflin so that we can get them designed and contracted out. And Sean has taken the lead on probably the biggest thing that we want to talk about, which is the diverter test that we came and got your input on and now have concluded the test, and Sean has some results. So I'll just turn it over to him for that part.
First step is to unmute. Okay. Yeah. So here's our kind of the results and recap of the diverter test and some other options as well, in addition to the diverter that we wanted to share. So a little bit of background. We have $125,000 available funding from a grant. We contracted with Tool Design Group. They did a study and came up with some recommendations for East Mifflin Bicycle Boulevard to do some improvements. We did hold a PIM on June 3rd this year. And we created a project website for this to keep people informed and up to date. The link is in there if you want to check it out. You can also just Google East Mifflin Bike Boulevard, City of Madison, and it should pop up. So here's kind of the timeline of the diverter test. That was kind of the main thing that I guess was impactful from the recommendation in the study from Tool. So we kind of first presented these options to this group in July, end of July. We collected some data in September before installing the test. We put up the test in October. And we collected some data, so we can do before and after data. And then we removed the test about a week or so ago for the winter season. Just a reminder on what the test was. We chose, this group chose the option with having the bikes go on the right and kind of doing an island. So we set that the test up like so in this in the graphic here. The other option that we had contemplated was having bikes kind of on the left side of the island But this was the option that we tested. I think operation went pretty well. Here's some pictures that I took of the tests and the action. So we set up delineators and some temporary signs. And yeah, here are the results. So we did some before and after data. I took the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday volumes, because those are what we consider our normal travel days. So we took those days and kind of averaged out the trips and kind of broke it down each hour. We did do the 800 and 800 blocks of Dayton and Mifflin, but we also did the 700 and 900 block. I thought that might be too much information overload, so I just presented the 800 block, which is where the diverter was in this. So our main concern was what was going to happen with these trips. If we divert all the trips going westbound, what was going to happen? Was Dayton Street going to be affected? What were the impacts going to be? And we found that the impacts to Dayton were actually relatively minimal. Their volumes are pretty low on Dayton Street. Still below 1,000. We saw that added about 200 more trips per day, and then in general on Mifflin, we saw trips decrease by about 700 in this 800 block. So that means 500 trips, give or take, were diverted kind of out of the neighborhood. We assumed to Johnson or East Washington, which is I think good, getting the trips out of the neighborhood. We did do some speed studies and found that the speeds did not change too much. It stayed relatively the same, actually decreased in some cases. I'm a little skeptical about this value in the 700 block of East Dayton after. That seems kind of to be an outlier, but just wanted to show that that's what we got. So that was kind of the data. We also, we had the survey. We had a little board out there. Actually, I might go back to our graphic here. We put out actually a little sign with a link to the survey, so people that were biking were able to find the website and go to the survey. And a lot of people did. There was a QR code that worked for a while that people were able to scan, or they could type in the website link. So we put that out so it was kind of easier for people to fill out the survey. We had about 136 people fill out the survey. It was actually a pretty, I guess it was about what we expected. It was a little less than 50% were biking. Looks like about 35% were driving a motor vehicle, and then the rest were walking. The majority of people traveling was by motor vehicle as well. So that was kind of question 2. The big one I want to draw the attention to is question 3, where we just kind of flat out asked, do you support the diverter or not? We got about 60% of the people voting to support the diverter, and about 35% opposing, and 5% said they could live with it. So I assume they were, they didn't really have too much of an opinion. We have some other potential improvements that we're looking to do. Like I mentioned earlier, we have $125,000 to work with. So we estimate the diverter would maybe cost around 30 to 40,000. So that would leave us, with some more, some more money to do other improvements. Some other recommendations that were in the study from the tool design group was to create a mid-block crossing in the 1,000 block near Lapham Elementary School. We kind of have a design like this, and maybe do a raised crossing if possible. Depend on grades and drainage, but if we can, we certainly would like to. And then bumping out Ingersoll, shortening those crossings into school, improving those was another thing that was called out. So those were other improvements that we were looking at. And I know actually Renee had a slide that did not make it in here. So sorry, Renee. They had a couple other improvements. I think one of them was a stop sign at investigating stop signs at Dickinson and Mifflin. We've heard that. We've had that request a few times, so looking into that to see if that makes sense. I think we were just experiencing a lot of traffic being diverted that way because there's no longer eastbound left turn at Baldwin. So I think people are using Dickinson to left turn. So seeing a little more traffic. So that was one of the things that we were also going to look at with the study. Renee, I don't know if you had other options as well. Looks like she left her desk. So, now she's back.
Sorry, my battery was dying there. I just wanted to say, yes, the other thing I wanted to mention was the bicycle wayfinding would also be part of this project to help people navigate when they're choosing not to use East Washington or during the peak hour travel when the bike lane is not available. The only other thing I would mention is these improvements were chosen during our public meeting. We did ask people to kind of rate some of the potential improvements and what they would prioritize, since we would not be able to do all of the projects that we might ideally want to do in this corridor. And then, of course, we have already done some changes to the stop sign, adding the stop signs for four-way on Baldwin, which were very popular. So.
So I think what we were looking for was a vote, I guess, to kind of to approve that diverter, allowing us to implement that. Staff's recommendation, I think, staff's recommendation is to approve the diverter. I think based on the data we saw and the results of the survey, I think it's a good change to implement on Mifflin Street. So we're just looking for a recommendation from the body for that.
Let me just clarify, what about the rest of the East Mifflin Bike Boulevard improvements that you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally also the installation of those two improvements along with the wayfinding would be ideal to include. I think the diverter was the bigger question, but ideally we would have everything approved, and then we would enter into final design work on all of those so that we can get them contracted out and built.
So it would be you're asking for an approval of the East Mifflin Bike Boulevard improvements. Would that be the right way to say it?
Yeah, I think that would be fair.
And I guess to add on to that, I think because we had another option before last time we came here. I think maybe approving this diverter option would also be what we're looking for, or what we'd recommend. I think from what we saw, this seemed to work pretty well. Because bikes didn't have to, they were able to kind of stay, on the right and go through instead of having to kind of weave with cars a little bit. I thought it worked out a lot better for that. But if there is a if there is a preference for the other option, we could that would be fine too. But yeah, just a preference on the option would be good.
So, what I have, let me just summarize and see if we have what you're looking for. You're asking for a motion to approve the East Mifflin Bike Boulevard improvements, which would include everything you talked about, including the wayfinding, along with the recommended East Mifflin diverter design. Would that be right?
I think that, yeah, that's it.
Okay, Robbie?
Well, I had a question first.
Sure.
Sean, did you say that, or Renee, did you say that you presented some other options besides the diverter and asked people which ones they liked, but you would not be able to do all of them? Did I misunderstand that?
No, that's correct. At the public meeting, we kind of talked about various, kinds of improvements that could be made. But we also had people kind of think about which ones they thought would have the most impact on their trips, and improve safety from what they're experiencing themselves. And so, just saying, like, obviously there's a lot of improvements that could be made along this stretch, but we have a limited budget, so.
Okay, so I guess my question is, are you presenting us tonight the ones that were most popular? When we vote, when we make a recommendation, do we need to specify anything besides this package of improvements, or have you already given us the ones that were most popular? And
Yeah, these are ones that we had considered and that we thought as staff were important, but also met, with what the public was thinking they were experiencing as well. So these are the ones that we think we can do within that $125,000 budget that we have. And I think what the public was thinking aligned pretty well with what the city was thinking. We did have to rule some things out, due to feasibility. Like the entire improvement would be more than our budget. So I think this aligns with the public and with staff recommendations. Both this whole package would be 125,000.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that we didn't have to make further winnowing in our motion.
Nope.
Okay. With that question answered, if it's all right, I would like to make a motion to recommend the package that has been presented to us tonight, including the diverter and the staff recommendations for additional improvements.
Okay, so, sorry, I had a cat on my lap and he was getting in the way of my writing. So you're recommending.
I'm sorry. Did we have someone with the public comment? I thought Aiden had told me. There may have been some.
I'm so sorry. Aiden, was there somebody that wanted to speak tonight on this?
We do. We have one person.
Well, then.
Okay, we should have said that a long time ago. So
I will withdraw my motion until we hear from the public.
Thank you, Robbie. Let's go ahead.
So we have Dan Pensinger of Forsythia Place supports and wishes to speak.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm still here as well. I just wanted to say that I've used East Mifflin quite a bit this past fall, and it's been very nice to have the diverter. I think it's reduced some of the through traffic on East Mifflin and made the bike boulevard more safe and comfortable for me. So I just want to reiterate support for it and thank you for doing the test with it. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and sorry about that. I didn't realize that there was someone waiting to speak on this. Any questions for Dan? Thanks for waiting with us, Dan. Okay, Robbie, did you want to?
Sure. I will make a motion to recommend the package that, traffic engineering has, presented to us tonight, including the diverter and additional improvements.
Okay. So what I have is you're recommending approval of the package that Traffic Engineering presented, including the diverter and additional improvements. Do we have a second for that? Chris,
Yeah, second.
did you wish to speak to your, thanks, Chris. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Robbie?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, thanks. Discussion. Okay, I'm seeing no hands. So we have, the motion is recommend approval of the package that Traffic Engineering presented, including the diverter and additional improvements. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Okay, thanks, Renee. Thanks, Sean. The motion is carried, and thanks again, Dan, for waiting to have your opportunity to speak. Okay, next, item 8, we have a reminder to commission members of the annual statement of interest form. And the reason this is so important is that you are required to file a statement of interest every year. The filing deadline for this year is January 7th. My email came on November 22nd. I'm assuming everybody else's came on the same day. But the key thing is that failure to submit this statement of interest will ultimately lead to revocation of your committee appointment. So everybody, please go ahead and fill that out. And Kaylee, I don't know if you have to fill it out again, but they do make a comment in the email that even if you filled one out earlier, if you get an email from the clerk asking you to fill it out again, they apologize, but you might have to do that. So just watch your email for that, Kaylee, to see if you get anything from the clerk asking for another statement of interest form. Does anybody have any question about it? Eric is on as well. I have seen people kicked off BCCs because they didn't file their statement of interest form. So it's real important that you do that. Pepe, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, only a quick reminder, who is this email coming from? Because my email just gets so much spam.
Sure, it came from clerk@cityofmadison.com.
Clerk. Gotcha. That's gonna help me find it. Thank you.
And it came to me on November 22nd, but clerk@cityofmadison.com.
Sounds good.
Okay, Eric?
Oh, just was gonna say, if anybody has particular questions or anything on that, I'm always happy to answer them. So, you know, if this needs to be on there or doesn't need to be on there, feel free to shoot me an email.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Robbie, go ahead.
Pepe, I sympathize, and I just typed in quotes, statement of interest, and it came right up in my email
Okay.
search.
Good tip. Thank you. Good tip.
Yeah, I looked for clerk and I found it right away too. So thanks both.
All right, excellent. Okay, anybody else have any questions? Okay, thanks. All right, item 9 is updates from BCC members who are members of other transportation related BCCs. And I'll just add that Lynn Olson, who is our other new commission member, is also a member of the Disability Rights Commission. So we'll have that connection with her on TC as well. Anybody have any updates for us tonight? Not seeing any hands. Give it another minute. Okay. We'll look for more updates in the future. Only announcement I had was the 3 changes that were approved at the Common Council last night with regard to committee membership. So Bill was moved from the second alternate to a resident member, and Kaylee Jameson was appointed as the first alternate, and Lynn Olson was appointed as the second alternate. So we look forward to continuing, Bill, to have you involved on TC, and Kaylee and Lynn. We look forward to having you involved. And thanks again to Kaylee for coming tonight. Okay. No other announcements from anybody? Okay. In terms of future agenda items, we have some ordinance changes to Chapter 11 and 12 of Madison Municipal Ordinances that might be coming our way. Paid parking for Wilson Street lot. Review and approval of some Metro Transit bus stop changes. Review and approval of updates to Complete Green Streets. Safe routes to school planning project. Update on transit equity for people with disabilities, one of the new items in our work plan. And a couple other things we're working on, three different things that we're working on with folks from the Department of Civil Rights. And of course, we have the list that's posted in Legistar that I track of suggestions that we've had from commission members over time. And we've crossed up a couple of them, and we're working on them as well. So any other suggestions for future agenda topics tonight? No? Okay, we covered a lot of ground tonight and a lot of good discussions as always. So we need a motion to adjourn. Pepe.
Just before my motion to adjourn,
Yes.
Chair, quick question. I noticed that the TC placeholders in the calendar go only until the end of this year. So I was wondering when the next TC meeting would be.
The next TC meeting is on January 8th, and Aiden and I just talked today, and he's going to be sending out new placeholder, calendar invitations for all of 2025 for you.
Okay, excellent. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Then I
so
will
that-
motion
that-
to adjourn.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Is there a second? Alder Martinez Rutherford.
I will second.
Thank you so much. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote. And thank you all so much for hanging with us tonight. Lots of great discussion as usual. So see you next time, and happy holidays, everybody.